Welcome to Keystone Connect, a video series and podcast connecting friends to faith, culture, and good vibes. I'm here with the best in the Midwest, Ryan King.
It's good to be with you. Things are crazy, man. Every week it gets crazier, but I feel like it's exciting times too. So glad to be here and excited for the conversation we have planned for
today. This is week
today.
12, so on the 12 weeks of Keystone Connect, Ryan King gave to me...
Nothing. I have
Give me
for you.
nothing?
Yeah, I don't have anything for you.
Okay. Well, what you do have for me is someone who can have a conversation with me, so that's good.
I
think
am
that
here
counts.
to converse, yes.
Right. So today we are talking about steps we can take to move towards understanding. We're going to talk about what's changing in our culture and then kind of conclude a little bit with some hope as well as a recommendation. Wanted to highlight a couple things of good news. Just to see the community come together on Sunday, everyone that I talked to that was downtown or saw it in part of cleaning up and repairing Grand Rapids was really good news. And I know a lot of people were very proud of Grand Rapids and how people stepped up, and like they said, like there wasn't even enough food from all these restaurants that were chipping in. People were giving away free food, free drinks to everyone that was helping. And I know the mayor was a little concerned about some social distancing, and that's what's like another weird thing about this, right? Like you want to protest maybe, or you want to go downtown and help clean up, or you want to just get together with people, but it's in this weird time of quarantine too.
Yeah.
So I think that, and one of the people on staff here at Keystone came in on our staff meeting, and I think it's really important. Do not give too much attention at all to some of this violence that's going on, because it's distracting from the peaceful protests and the dialogue that's really important that will help us to take practical steps forward. And I think that's what Sunday was all about. Saturday, who knows what was going on? There's a lot of different people thinking different things, but that's going to get 95% of the news headlines versus people that are peacefully protesting, and it's not quite as sexy to the media.
And I 100% agree in terms of riot versus protest. That protest needs to get the airtime. The more this issue has gone on, though, and this is going to be controversial, but again, it's things we have to talk about and see, is there something brokenness or not? Is a conversation is police brutality in all of this.
Yeah.
And that has to do with violence. And, it's not simple, it's complex.
Right.
But it is cool when we navigate through the complexity and we see people helping out, like cleaning up after there are riots and stores are smashed, that there are people that show up, that clean up, and then people showing up again to peacefully protest what is going on, and we need to hold those people up and be thankful for them, because again, the issue, we can't lose the issue because of the complexity.
Right. Yep. And I think that's where a lot of us as white people just are like, yeah, I'm frustrated, it's annoying, there's not a perfect quick fix. You know, we can't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and solve this just by pure grit.
Yeah.
It's listening, it's hard, it's tension. And so I wanted to transition here to how we can reach understanding together. This first point was just that complexity must not lead to apathy. We talked about that, but just this sense of there are hundreds of years of history with broken people involving millions of people, decisions, laws, and acts of injustice, both known and unknown. Whatever you do, don't allow the complexity. And like when people talk about politics, like, I hate politics. It's like, well, do you shower? Because it's our shared space, you know? And there are so many countries throughout the world that don't have running water or something. So it's talking about our shared space and knowing that it's not perfect, it's complex. There's so many different little things that can lead us to check out and be apathetic. But initially, our shared space is a good thing. I just think it's very important to know that we were born into a problem, right? Like we were just born here on Earth, and already this whole long history of brokenness has happened. and acknowledging that, I think, is important. And so what actions can kind of lead to wisdom here? I just did a couple practical things that we've kind of touched on, but I just wanted to make sure that I needed to be reminded of these, and this has been some of the processing of me, is just kind of writing it out and talking about it.
I'd love to hear.
One is listening to stories. We always talk about walking a mile in someone's shoes, but do we actually think of what that tangibly looks like? I know you were touching on this earlier, but it's like, when I go out and drive, I don't have to worry about putting a lanyard around my neck like a lot of our Black friends, whether it's in Grand Rapids community or somewhere in the United States. I don't have to worry about putting my license and registration around my neck so it prevents me from reaching in my glove compartment and being scared for my life. I don't have to think that when I'm walking to my car early in the morning to drive here to Keystone. And there are on the other side as well, I don't have to think about, I remember there was someone in Grand Rapids that was talking about how it was so hard for her to see her husband leave at night because of potentially violent protests, and who knows what could happen if he's going down on duty, and putting ourselves in the shoes of everything, and not just saying walk a mile in their shoes, because that's like a big blanket statement, and it doesn't allow you to actually tangibly walk in their shoes. Even something with COVID-19. When we talk about 100,000 deaths in the United States from COVID-19, that doesn't really move us. But if we think about 100,000 stories of grandmas, of husbands, of wives, of children that are dead, that is a lot more impactful and will draw us to action, to kind of press into that. But we're just gonna be like, 100,000, that's a lot, and then we move on, But just knowing that there are stories and there are tangible things that are happening that we need to enter into that space.
Things change when the problem comes close to home.
Right.
If you're one of the people whose family member died from COVID, that hits a lot differently than it does for somebody who doesn't. If you're somebody who lives in the community with Black people that are friends and neighbors, this hits a lot differently. Those are the things we need to check ourselves on. You have to look at the houses, look at the school district that you live in, and is it a diverse community or not? And if it's a predominantly white community, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but you need to be aware of that, because your reality is going to be different than the reality of people who live in the social injustice that exists. So I love that, because it's listening to those stories of people who are dealing in it and with it. Just because this is something we always talk about in our family. Your perception of reality can be completely different than somebody else's perception of reality. And it's critical that we recognize that our realities are different. I mean, is how it lands.
For sure. So a second action that can lead to wisdom here, first is listening to stories. Second is, if you get involved in a conversation about recent events, it's easy to go right down a rabbit hole and maybe just lead to frustration or apathy or anything. But I think what's good is just asking the question, what's one thing you've learned about racism right now? Have you learned anything about current policy, heard a story, or heard any stats that shook your perspective? So, as an example of this, Ryan, what's one practical either fact or story or something that you've heard that has just really shook you in this time?
That's
we're at a bonfire.
What's that?
Bonfires are popular these days, so I'm trying to help our listeners tangibly be
so you
learned?
Okay. So it's why are we at a bonfire? We're not at a bonfire right now.
There's not a fire going on.
No,
We're in the pre-K room. Things could get a little dicey. There's some curtains back here, so.
I think this is a hard one for me, because I think there's a lot of different things that come to my mind that have shaken me a lot. But I think that this was something that a pastor that I recently watched. There's a podcast by Elevation Church that features their pastor Stephen Furtick and a pastor named John Gray. And John
we're
Gray
putting
says,
that in the description, by the way.
Yeah, if John Gray essentially says, if this happened to, if somebody kneeled on the neck of a dog, and the dog died, and this was on camera, justice would have been demanded about the abuse and the horror of what happened.
Yeah.
And if you think about the reaction, if that was a dog versus this being a human being, that rattled me a lot.
Right.
And I needed to sit on that one a bit. And I think just like, again, factually understanding like what's going on, because again, a lot of people, it's almost like we divert from the main problem with the George Floyd case.
Right.
People go, we don't focus on the racism, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that happened where he was crying out and he was had a knee on his neck, but people ask the question, well, what did he do? And that in itself is an indicator of racism.
Right.
Because it's like, no matter what he did in America, does it deserve death?
Yeah.
Like that right there is a huge indicator. And somebody pointed that out recently to me. It was just like, wow, like you're missing the point of what's happening. Because again, in America, we have due process. So if a crime was done, it doesn't deserve death. It deserves due process and justice. And I don't know, those are two things that really hit me.
Right. They're like, so what's like the bigger story here? It's like, it doesn't matter if there's a story or not. This 4 people were witnessing him for minutes crying out. Have you watched the video yourself?
I mean, I've seen clips like most people, but I haven't sat down to really watch that.
Yeah, that's something that I think I'm gonna do, just part of my listening, and just to experience it.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm still wrestling down, should I or should I not?
Right.
And what will it do for me if I do it or I don't?
Right.
So
yeah, which is part of that tension we've talked about. So first action, listen to stories. Second, ask like a practical question if you're with a big group of people or something, if it comes up. And third is I call it humbly bold to call someone or something out if it's not okay. Because there will be, I think, many conversations that will happen in the next couple of weeks where that's not okay. And it could be obvious or it could be not so obvious. But I think that's why it's important to listen. And whether you need to ask questions to them to get to the bottom of it or just say, sorry, man, I completely disagree with that. Here's why. I think we need to be bold to call, and like I said, humbly bold to call something out.
Yeah.
It's just not okay.
It's part of the art of the conversation,
Yeah.
That there's respect in relationship when we call it out. And that's one of the things I struggle with the online stuff. Because a lot of things online just feels like shouting.
Right.
And and though there are opinions that are probably right and true, it's hard to have a conversation through a tweet, through a post, through a picture. And the real life-changing conversations are going to happen in person.
Yeah, I agree. Fourth, actions that lead to wisdom here. I guess it's not necessarily an action, it's just awareness of your emotions and the effect they have on you. Just even like what we were talking about, if you watch that video, you're like, I don't know if I want to watch it because of what my emotions and like where it's going to take me. And I think it's important to know also that when we, like for instance, let's say for instance, you watch that video and then you pull up your Facebook right away and just shout something. It's like, like it's important to call things out, but it's also important to be aware of where our headspace is in some instances as well, because it could just be shouting versus something practical and helpful.
Yeah, I like that one. I think that's something I've learned more and more to do with, is that my mind has a reaction, but also my body has a reaction, and that emotions aren't just a mental, intellectual thing. Emotions are something your body is adjusting to and adapting to. And through coronavirus, that's something that I've learned, is that my body's adjusting in some way, and I need to take time to really process not only mentally and logically, but also like what my emotional and like my physiological self is doing. So right. Yeah, I think that's a huge one, is awareness of our own selves through this.
Right. And it's hard too, because in certain ways people might also say, yeah, but we need to speak up and we need to speak out against these things. And I think that's important, but I think it's also just important to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
your emotions and how sometimes we can be very irrational within those
It takes
emotions
courage
as well.
to listen, and listening isn't the same as silence. Listening is taking in not only external stimulus but internal stimulus, listening and understanding, and then you're able to speak in an educated and wise way. I think that's what the book of Proverbs speaks to us a lot about, is speaking in wisdom and holding our tongue, that the tongue is the rudder for the body. And again, like I like what you said, we can't just watch or see something and immediately respond. What does it look like to take 5 seconds step back, just be like, all right, hold up.
Right.
I need to think this through and why I'm doing this. And for me, I know for me, it's easier to have the gut reaction.
Right.
Which is why I think the coronavirus and Black Lives Matter movement have hit me so differently, because they are ever-present realities through days and weeks and months. And it's harder to have a gut reaction to something that isn't momentary.
Right. Fifth action that leads to wisdom here, just quick touch on it, is praying for our leaders, praying for our media, as well as praying for people that we respectively disagree with. You know, praying for our enemies in that way, that can really help us gain perspective as far as we are called to move forward. That involves praying for people that it's really hard to pray for.
Yeah, I love that. I think if you disagree with somebody, praying for them, no matter what side of the issue you're on, praying for the protesters, praying for the rioters, praying for the police, praying for the mayor, praying for the governor, praying for the president. Whether you disagree with them, whether you think people are morons, whether you think they're the most intelligent people, prayer, I think for me, prayer always leads to greater empathy. Yeah. And I think that is so critical. So I love number 5. That's great.
Great. 6 is knowing that our votes for our elections matter, and that we can think in crises such as these, who do we want lead? That's just a general statement that things like this will continue to come up, and who do we want addressing these things? Whether it's our mayor, whether it's our governor, whether it's our president, all of this. Like, I was talking to Brady. He was like, I've never really known much about our governor, but now I know a ton.
Yeah.
And it increases some political engagement, at least, whether through the COVID or the recent events happening.
Yeah. And if 2020 hasn't shaken you awake to the reality of your voting, especially young people, if we have anybody millennial range that's watching this and you have not voted, your vote is critical. Even if you're voting against me, just the fact that young people are the lowest statistic of people that vote is heartbreaking, because I believe young people have some of the most important perspectives on what's going on and where our state, where our neighborhoods, where our country is going. So young people, if you're 18 or older, register to vote and go, and we can throw a link on registering to vote. Super easy. So please do that.
Yeah, another small bit of good news is the amount of young people that I've heard that are actually starting these protests and starting these peaceful kind of rallies and get-togethers. I've heard a lot of different stories of people throughout the country, young people that have been doing that. So that has been encouraging, and also getting that for them to vote is of the utmost importance. And I want to conclude our actions that lead to wisdom here with something that might not seem like hope, but I believe it is. So we've had hundreds of years of these atrocities of police brutality, but now I think what is hopeful in a very sick way is that now they're being recorded. We have this wherever we go, right? Yeah. And it's important to know that this can also be used way out of context a lot of times, but in instances like what happened recently, no context is needed for that. For seeing a man suffocated and dying for minutes while people just watched. Cops just watched. And I think this has the potential to keep a lot of people accountable, to tell a lot of stories, and to rally people together. It can be used as a terrible thing, or it can be used as something of hope that there's a constant accountability no matter where you go with this.
Yeah, I think with a wider access to information and technology, we need to have a greater level of discernment in that. And I think, again, if you go through any social media, and you'll see videos upon videos of people, because again, the media right now is insane. The 24-hour news cycle, I honestly believe, is one of the worst things that has happened in terms of understanding truth. And I'm really excited but also scared about the fact that, everyone has a phone in their pocket.
Right, yeah, no, and me saying that, and for the listeners, I was pointing to my phone when I was saying this. I guess I meant it more in the concept of accountability for instances such as what happened. And people being held accountable to that. 50 years ago, we wouldn't have got that on record. We will end with some thought-provoking as well as relatively funny jokes. It feels a little weird.
I appreciate that. I think, no. I think it's important for us. It's important for people not just to always be in the tension, but also recognize, hey, there's 24 hours in the day and it's okay to lighten up.
Right.
And Eric, your jokes and your thoughts always are almost the best medicine, almost as good as real medicine, almost as good as miraculous healing, almost as good as a good book. It's that good. So give me
some... Or a good back rub, that's what you sometimes say.
Yeah, or just puppies.
Puppies.
And I know you're allergic, but yeah, so give me some just good vibes for the day.
So I think this one was great. This first one is culturally relevant right now. The first thing, I call them shower thoughts, things that you might just think of in your shower when you're just thinking about random stuff. This first one. Hindsight is 2020 will have a double meaning moving forward.
I like that.
That's wild.
Yeah.
2020 vision. Everyone was all over the 2020 vision memes in the beginning, but now hindsight is 2020, double meaning. Second one, movies from 2008 to 2010 seem like they released yesterday until someone in the movie takes out a mobile phone.
Yeah, dude. Technology in any movie makes you feel old.
Yeah, especially if it's a flip phone. You're whoa,
you're
ancient.
Wow, frickin' this is a reverse sci-fi movie.
This one was probably one of my favorites in kind of a weird way. So, if a toy from Toy Story died or its batteries ran out, then the rest of the toys would have to watch and play around with a corpse.
Do you think that's true, though? I feel like all the toys in Toy Story are animated by some magic or whatever. Right? Is there an instance? I'm not a huge Toy Story. Is there an instance where they have to get batteries to somebody to keep them alive or something like that?
There could have been.
But also, do toys die? Is this shower thought in and of itself? In Toy Story, do toys die?
That's good.
If
you took a shower thought and created another one.
If you remove the head of a toy from Toy Story, are they dead in the toy world? Or does the head just keep talking? And the body keep moving?
I don't know.
Because they're also not biologically functioning.
Right.
All right, get me with talking about, you got a body one here. This one's pretty good.
Your body can turn its visual off, but not its audio. So right now, closing my eyes. Boom. Turn that off. But I can still hear you no matter what.
Wow. So these are all thoughts that you've had?
No. So I kind of looked.
You found some of these?
Okay,
I
found two originals. I can move forward and tell you my originals.
Hit me with the originals, and then we can do some recommendations.
How much time of your life would be wasted if you read every word of the terms and conditions pages?
Would it be a waste?
Absolutely.
Do you think
Have
so?
you ever read
Do you
them?
think there is a gold mine in the terms and conditions? Or do you think it's literally just meant for us to scrub forward and click yes?
Scrub forward so we don't sue them is pretty much what I always think.
Okay.
So actually, I read one that I've been saying for a while that reinforced it. So teeth are such a bizarre concept. There's a bunch of bones sticking outside of your body and you have to wash them to stop from decaying. So every night when I'm brushing my teeth, I always think this is so weird. I never do this with any other part of my body. You put this weird, paste and you brush it.
I hope no dentists watch, but brushing your teeth is just a conspiracy.
Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to do these next ones. We don't even have to dialogue them because I want the people to
just
hear.
Hit them with, and then I'll do our recommendation.
We're all probably yawning less since we can't see other people yawning with their masks on. Music is the closest thing we have to mind control. It makes people move, changes moods, and can also bring back memories. You never appreciate how well your nostrils work until they get stuffy. Those who were playing chess in the Middle Ages are the OG gamers. And you hate pen clicks unless you're the one making them.
Thank you for those. I appreciate that.
So we've talked about, a lot of different thoughts in this. And now those were some beneficial, I think, just stretch your mind a little bit, give it a little break.
Yeah, give it a break from, societal disruption and just, intellectual disruption, I guess. So let's talk about our recommendation roundup. And today we're going to do something different because we have so many things we want to recommend to you guys that we're just going to post them in our like our link caption comment section for you guys to check out, especially on the YouTube. You can just click them. There's going to be books. There's actually 3 books that I'm reading right now that I'm excited. That I have right now that I'm excited to start reading about race in America. One is called White Fragility. I'm going to be reading The Hate U Give. And then the other one is another fiction novel called Nickel Boys, which is a painting of, again, race in America. So if you're interested in those, we'll put them on Amazon. And you got a couple recommendations that will be below?
Yeah. I watched King in the Wilderness last night. Really good documentary on MLK. Just really, I left feeling educated and just encouraged amidst a difficult time to work towards moving forward. And yeah, a bunch of other movies and series and other things that you can watch, you can act on, you can listen. So we have all these different resources in the bio. I'll make it nice and organized for you to just click on some links. You can do that on the YouTube. No, you can't. It takes out the links in the YouTube, but just copy and paste.
Yeah, cool. So be sure to check those out. I hope they are encouraging, challenging, educating, but that you guys are enjoying our recommendation roundup. And that rounds up our recommendation
round. That was the first time we've done that.
I'm so honest though, that was so back and forth and convoluted. It was like wires. But yeah, this has been a fun episode again.
Yep.
For me, I appreciate having these dialogue, and I hope you guys appreciate the dialogue of I just need to talk, man. So it's good to have this. So thank you so much for putting together the conversation today.
Yeah.
It's been a good Keystone Connect.
Yeah, we love you guys. Subscribe if you want to just automatically receive emails when we come out with these. They've usually been coming out anywhere between Friday and Sunday, so we'll try to keep it within that time frame too. You guys have a great week, and if you liked anything, thought of a shower, thought that was cool, put it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Grace and peace, friends.